Hello and welcome. In this presentation, we will talk about choosing and implementing partnerships that fit the problem at hand. After this video, you will be able to understand what type of partnership belongs to what type of problem. You will also be able to distinguish between so-called coalitions of the willing and coalitions of the needed. Once you have decided that the issue or the problem you want to address is something that requires collaborative action from multiple stakeholders, the question of course pops up, who should be involved? Well, as you might remember, we can distinguish between 4 different types of cross-sectoral partnerships. The classic type is a PPP, a public-private partnership. When the state partners with a civil society organization, we call this an NPPP, a non-profit public-private partnership. When private companies partner with civil society organizations, we use the term PNP, or profit non-profit partnerships. And when all 3 sectors are involved in a partnership, we refer to this as a tripartite partnership, or TPP. So, how do we decide what type of partnership is needed? A first step is to think about what sectors are part of the problem and can be part of the solution. Likely, when the problem we are dealing with is wicked, we probably need the involvement of all societal sectors, and thus we will probably also aim to establish a tripartite partnership. What narrows our choices down a little bit, but actually who to engage in this tripartite partnership. When we are dealing with a wicked problem, we know that we are dealing with a complex issue that is related to a host of other problems. One could say it is part of a systemic or an interrelated problem. That makes it a systemic issue or a problem that is caused by the overall system and not by an individual or isolated factor or actor. A systemic view allows us to focus on our collective failure and at the same time on our collective potential to collaborate effectively. Changing the effectiveness of a system requires what we call getting the whole system into the room. It means that as many different and relevant stakeholder groups as possible should be brought in with the intention of bringing the maximum number of perspectives to bear on the problem. Greater stakeholder diversity in general leads to superior group outcomes. Diversity is not necessarily the leading influence on out-of-the-box outcomes, however, but balanced representation is. This means that a good selection of the right stakeholders is essential. So, to address the wicked problems effectively, we need those partnerships and coalitions that have responsibility and take responsibility. In reality, however, we might not find that those stakeholders engaging in a partnership consist of organizations that are willing to take responsibility, regardless of whether or not they are in fact responsible for the problem. When such partnerships develop, we call them coalitions of the willing. So, what are missing are those organizations that have responsibility but do not take it. Assessing wicked problems and addressing wicked problems requires therefore the involvement of all responsible actors to form a coalition of the needed. A misalignment between coalitions can result in particularly unfit partnerships. In the top left green box, you can see what happens when the partners are neither willing nor needed. Confusion appears. What are we doing here? In the top right red box, you can see what happens when the partners are willing but not needed. This is what we call the problem of crowding out. It appears when those that are needed have a lower incentive to contribute, and probably also because others are doing their job for them. This even might make the problem worse. Finally, in the bottom left red block, you can see what happens when partners are not willing but needed. The partnership is involuntary and runs the risk of stagnation and other forms of implicit boycotts which might jeopardize the whole partnership. We call this adverse selection. Well, many of the partnerships that exist today consist largely of coalitions of the willing. As a result, all sorts of misalignment exists, and it proves quite difficult to reach a good fit or to improve the fit in the course of the partnership, for instance by including other partners later on. But even if needed partners are potentially also willing to participate, it still remains challenging to achieve the best possible fit between the issue at hand and what prospective partners should bring to the table. At the very start of partnership formation, so when you are looking around for potential partners, you need to ask each other critical questions to ensure a good fit with the goals and the needs of the partnership. So the following tool developed by the Partnering Initiative might come in handy. It suggests questions you can ask to start a discussion with potential partners. For instance, you can ask whether the prospective partner has a good track record, or to what extent they are respected within their own sector and outside of it. You could ask how many contacts they have had and what kind of skills they are able to bring in that partnership, and also to see whether these skills are complementary to your own. Well, for the complete tool with more of such questions, please see the Coursera website. Well, once your ideas about who should be in the partnership become clearer, it is time to consider what resources are needed for the task the partnership sets itself. The very idea of working together in cross-sector partnerships is that combining diverse resources that partners brings adds value, such that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. It is important to recognize that funding, for instance, is but one of a long list of possible resources. Partners can bring resources such as technical expertise, social capital, relationships, legitimacy, authority, access to critical knowledge, or products, for instance. The list goes on. Mapping what each partner brings to the table helps you recognize and value their resources. At the same time, it will also help you identify possible gaps. You might need, for instance, certain resources that the current set of partners cannot provide. And this means you need to search for more partners. To give you a bit of an idea of what to expect from potential partners, here's an overview of what the different sectors can typically provide. Please note that this is in no way a rigid classification, and that in real life exceptions will occur. But generally speaking, we often see that civil society organizations bring a lot of knowledge, access to communities, legitimacy, and even passion to the table. The private sector is more likely to bring in things like project management, innovation, financial contributions. And governments can often provide regulatory frameworks, taxation policies, but also democratic legitimacy. So, to wrap up, wicked problems will likely require tripartite partnerships, TPPs, with representation of government, business and civil society organizations. Effective partnerships involve those partners that have responsibility and are also willing to take responsibility for the issue at hand. This means that they are not coalitions of the willing, but rather coalitions of the needed. To ensure a maximum fit between the issue and the partnership, several tools are at your disposal. In this video, we have suggested a few key questions to ask potential partners, to investigate if they are a suitable candidate. Once it becomes clear who will engage in the partnership, it is time to do a systematic mapping of the resources that partners will bring in. Through this mapping, you might identify gaps, and you might need to look for more or other partners. This will help you on your journey towards the ultimate partnership configuration for your wicked problem. Well, interested to learn more about partnership formation? This booklet might help you. It is freely available for downloading at the Partnership Resource website, but of course you can also find it on the Coursera website. Good luck.